MzeroA Nation, Jason here. Welcome into day 13 now of the 31-day Safer Pilot Challenge. Today, for day 13, because 13 is really a lucky number here, I brought in really one of my best friends, Controller Bob, Aloha Bob. He has so many different names. Bob, what on earth do you want us to even call you? You're a man of so many names and talents.
Well, my wife calls me honey, so
I don't know if I'm going to go that far and call you honey, but I know some people are going to
right,
call you very nice things after you
right,
help them out with their radio
right.
communications. So
Can I
go
relay
ahead.
a story real quick? We talk about air traffic communications, and I just
Yeah.
want to let everybody know, since I'm doing a lot of flying, that even as much time as I've spent on frequency, arguably, I still get tongue-tied, which happened to me yesterday, as a matter of fact. So the controller
Oh,
threw out a bunch of instructions. I was thinking in my mind, trying to visualize what he was saying and try to apply that to what he was intending for me to do so that I can not mess that up. And as in the read back, just blew through it. And not Joel. We actually had Joel in the backseat of the airplane. I do have pictures of that.
yes.
To the right of me, he looks over and he's, what was that? And I was like, oh man. So to everybody out there, just let you know, tongue-tied and kind of missing readbacks to people who've done a lot of talking on radio, it still happens. And that's kind of, I kind of laughed about it a little bit. A good controller will be very patient with you in regards to
Yes.
these kind of things, but you can also, as a pilot, do a lot of things to help yourself and kind of visualize how it is being said to you. And that's the way I kind of look at it. So,
Well, I think
yeah,
that's a smart story to open with because
yeah,
the lifelong controller, now
right.
turning pilot, even was tongue-tied at one
It's
point.
crazy. I kind of laughed about that too, but it
Now,
happens.
it does happen. So let's take a step back though, Bob, because radio communications initially when you're learning to fly came a little bit easier to you than say, someone like myself, Bob. My only time I talked to anybody was for my 3 required takeoff and landings solo at a towered field. I went up to Gainesville and came back because it was back in the old days before Ocala had a tower. I was terrified of the radios. I went into my instrument having never done VFR flight following before, which would have helped a lot to get into that environment for instrument.
Hmm.
How can we have students who are just scared to talk on the radio, scared to say the wrong thing, scared to not understand? I mean, from a controller perspective, how
Right.
can we help out those student pilots out there?
Well, the interesting part, and I don't want to sit there and throw this on your CFI, but the CFI has got to be really helpful in kind of getting you rehearsed. So, a lot of times when you're discussing or talking to controllers before you take that flight to a towered field, if you've been in that thing, or you ask for flight following, talk with your CFI and rehearse the sequence of events that might take place, and that can be really, really big. I would be hard pressed to think that you as a student pilot would be thrown up in the air and said, go at it and then try to figure it out. I mean, there have been many ways in which people will listen online and these kinds, but your CFI and rehearsing these things. So if you feel kind of nervous about actually going to say, all right, the CFI's got enough experience to talk on the radio that can do the work as a controller so that you can sit there next to the airplane in a pre-brief or a debrief and say, I'm going to be the controller or you be the controller and I'm going to be the
Yes.
pilot. And we're going to rehearse the sequence because controllers are going to say pretty much the same thing every time.
Wow.
And so, you can do a lot to kind of help yourself in that regard if you're brand new to these kind of things. And as you get along in your training, you talk to more people like me, it's not so bad. That's kind of the key on that.
Well, and
You could tell from,
yeah,
I was
gonna
gonna say
say
you can. I'm sorry. You can tell real quick from when I'm sitting there working airplanes. You can tell who the student pilot was and
yeah,
who's not. The compliment, and that just happens. It's not
yeah.
a dig or anything like that. You just know. And a lot of times, the CFI will require the student to say student pilot when they talk on the radio. And I kind of I get it. Joel made me say student pilot, and I told him I wasn't going to do it. And he said, well, you're not going to take the airplane unless you do. And so, but I will talk to student pilots, and I know you can hear it. The challenge is if a student pilot can fool me into thinking they're not a student pilot. And fool
Whoa,
meaning you get the idea that they've
they're good.
done it once or twice, and they say the things that I'm listening for as a controller. So there's a couple things that. And we're terrible listeners too. Pilots are, have trouble listening because there's a lot of things going on. Well, there's a lot of things going on the other side of the frequency too. So it's a kind of a patience thing on how each respond to the other. And when you get a controller has got some experience and listen and really patient, that's going to be the key to your success on communicating with the controller. So
Absolutely. So
yeah,
our CFIs can help us. We can script this out. We can
that's
work
right.
through and practice
That's
these
right.
scenarios.
Call me up and we'll talk.
There
I
you
am
go.
not opposed. I am serious
He's
as a
not
heart attack.
kidding. He's
No,
not
I am not
kidding.
kidding. No, if somebody like, for example, Ray, who does
Yeah.
some of our editing here, right?
Yeah.
He's called. We've talked a little bit about that too, and I don't have no problems doing that because I think it's important because nobody wants to go up in the air and fear, the controller. You
Right.
want to put that aside because communicating with controller and flying are congruent. And
Yes.
so if you can master one, then you're going to be better at the other. So,
Well, and Bob is super serious about that MzeroA Nation. I mean, leave a comment below this. He checks
yeah.
it out on YouTube, on Facebook,
Yeah,
super active in
yeah.
the group,
No,
everything
it's
else.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
So here's one of my favorite stories when you get a pilot that's talking on the radio, and I'm going to go off, and this is a long time ago.
A controller that talks too much. I mean,
Yeah, right,
imagine
no
that,
doubt,
right?
right?
Jeez.
And slow, right? Controllers
Yeah.
talk slow on the radio. They'll sit there and they'll come over and they'll say, and I can pick up a student, hey, this is your first cross country, because typically you can tell you're not going to leave home plate unless you're on a cross country, and you'll hear the fear. And I said, hey, are you? This is your first cross country? Dumb question, I know. Yeah, it's my first cross country. And I go, okay, well, are you nervous, right? And of course they're nervous. And I go, well, what did you get my message before you took off? And they'll go, no, what was the message? I said, you were going to wait. We were going to do this flight together. And they go, well, I'm not supposed to take passengers, right? Which far is that, right? And so as I'm studying for my commercial written, by the way,
Yes.
I'm taking tomorrow. So I said, well, I'm not supposed to take passengers. I said, don't worry, I'm not going to tell anybody. We'll do it together. And somebody on the frequency said, shh, he's lying to you. Don't listen to him. Don't trust him. And it was really fun, but the whole point was to loosen them up they knew that I wasn't going to be the issue for them flying from A to B.
Sure. Let them focus
Not
on
every,
flying. Yeah.
Certainly, I will tell you right now, that's an extreme rarity thing. I'm not saying but as a general rule, when you're flying and you're talking controllers, kind of imagine me sitting there. That's a scary thought. Trust me.
I mean, it's scary just to have you over here right now.
That's right.
There's so much good lookingness happening over here. It's intimidating.
I am aware. You're right. You have no idea how much hairspray it took to get this to do what I'm doing. But just try to the best thing to do is just relax, and then try not. If you don't, here's the other part. I will say, if you feel overwhelmed, regardless of who's talking to you on the radio, just go back and say, I need to hear that again. Wow. You can't just take it. You can't. You just got to, because you're got to do the best you can to listen. And sometimes things happen, but you've got to be smart enough, or, really put the pride aside to say, I'm not going to ask if I didn't hear it correctly. It's happened to me a couple times too. So, controllers, typically we go through a lot of training to what they call chunking, which is not rip off, altitude, a heading, report 3 mile final, expect left traffic, plan on touch and go, runway, all these things, and and expect anybody to listen and go, I got it all. It's very difficult to do. So you have to sit there and go back, okay, verify what they said. And that's going to be, remember that when you have an issue. So, yeah.
No doubt. Let me end with one more question here. Kind of a personal question. As a controller, what do you like working best? Is it ground? Is it tower? Is it approach? Like what is the place? Look at your schedule that day. Go, this is a good day.
That's a good, interesting question. Wow. You threw a curveball at me. I didn't say. I love working at a tower, and for a couple reasons. When you have a pattern going, and a pattern, if you got 4 or 5 or 6 in a pattern, and they're bouncing around, and you're hitting gaps on final or you have a lineup for departure and you have a guys lined up and this is all air traffic term stuff, everybody. So I'm going to use, when you're hitting gaps and banging them out and squeeze plays and all these things,
I don't know what any of this means.
Okay.
Sounds like you're a football coach or something.
Air traffic,
like that now, right?
Okay, squeeze play would be 2 guys on final. I'm going to use my hands, everybody. Two guys on final, minimum separation, and you're going to try to launch somebody out into that gap. That's a squeeze play. Lock and load. If I put somebody in position and here comes a guy driving down the final, you're going to lock and load him. Now, if you go to Atlanta or you go to the big hubs where you're popping them off, or we're hitting gaps in that regard, departures in front of, man, there's nothing like. Now, I will tell you, it doesn't happen all that much, but Oshkosh and Sun and Fun, oh my God, that's hitting gaps and that's pounding some airplanes. That is amazing stuff. We're all sick in the head to want to do that event. Right. So that's kind of, so that's the tower part of it. Ground control can be pretty interesting too, but not nearly as much. Radar room is unbelievable. Radar room controlling you get up, and those are the days when you get hit in the radar room with a lot of airplanes or things are happening. Those are the days you'll drive home and don't remember the drive home.
Wow.
So you'll sit there and you'll run out of spit. Can you believe it? Run out of spit? Yeah.
Yeah. Can't believe you get tired of talking. That's the hard part.
Well, I love what I do, obviously. And it's fun to, kind of talk to people about it. I think you have to enjoy what you do, obviously. And people aren't flying because they don't want to do it. And I think, when you talk to a controller, enjoy what you're doing in flying and then have fun. And then, we'll talk on the phone afterwards. We'll discuss what happened and then off we go. Yeah.
No doubt.
So,
I absolutely love it, Bob. Thank you for number one, this great message. Thank you for encouraging others in the comments, and MzeroA Nation. Seriously, Bob will read, and myself will read every single comment you post. So if you love Bob's hair, let him know, because he needs affirmations.
Right.
let him know in the comments. But
I went I'm sorry, Jason. I went into the haircut. I said, give me the Jason Shepard look, and they gave me this.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Bob is once we get back to normal life and there's Sun and Fun in Oshkosh again. How many years is Sun and Fun controller? How many years Oshkosh?
This will be 15. And then I've done 6 Oshkoshes. So.
And that's the all-star game. That's not like they just call up any Joe Schmo controller. That's the all-star game.
I'm telling you, every time you go, and the whole group there, just pinching themselves. You can't believe you get to do it. Amazing. Yeah.
It's super cool.
I mean, that's a whole nother show we do.
That is absolutely right. Well, Bob is always hanging around the MzeroA booth at Oshkosh and Sun and Fun when he's not busy landing and doing departures and everything else.
Hitting gaps, remember?
Hitting gaps and squeeze plays. I've got new. I'm going to read through the pilot controller glossary after this and
You won't find it.
Yeah, I figured as much. MzeroA Nation, we can't wait to read your comments below this video on YouTube, on Facebook, on MzeroA.com. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And Bob, you do the outro so well. Lead us to victory, please.
Just remember, a good pilot is always learning.
It was close. See you, everybody. Bye.